Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Jets Afterburners podcast, New York Jets Stand 16. And again, we're moving along with this series here. This series is about NFL fans and how they can cope with not having football on anymore until August. I am no doctor or nutritionalist. I'd like to use this platform as an out-of-the-box health perspective in which the ultimate decision is yours. And you should always consult with your physician and do your own due diligence before going on a well-being journey. Now, our next guest has over 50,000 followers on social media. He is a health-first carnivore influencer, marathoner, and author of the book Carnicopia. Link will be provided in the description below. With that, the great Cary Kelly. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into it. What got you into this way of eating?
A heavy dose of desperation. I was pretty much at the end of my metabolic rope, and I had to make changes in my life, or I wasn't going to have many more years left in my life. I was pretty much sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I'm the kind of person that doesn't like drastic change in my life, and I kind of surprised myself by taking this leap of faith into this what started out as a keto diet and eventually became a mostly carnivore diet.
Wow. Was there a certain point where you were going along your journey in life? Were there certain inflammation or certain health scares that made you think twice on certain decisions of your actual health and whatnot?
Absolutely. Around the age of 40, I'm 50. I'll be 56 in less than a month. Around the age of 40, I started my metabolism and health just started falling apart, and I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, and I started living with inflammation in my spine and all throughout my hips and knees and feet. It was chronic inflammation, and that pretty much ruled my life for about 8 years. And doctors told me, I was just going to have to get used to it. It was just, part of getting old. And I believed that for the longest time. And it took me all these drastic changes, changing my diet to see it. It took just 3 days of changing my diet to realize that inflammation is not mandatory. It's not automatically part of getting old. It's got everything to do with what we're putting in our body. And when you put clean food, a proper human diet into your body, it's pretty amazing how everything changes. It's life changing,
isn't it? It's very true, because going through my journey as well. I started sometime in November, and that's what I felt. To me, it was like, all right, the weight loss journey. I got to get the weight down. But there were certain traumatic events where I'm like, I got to do something different. And you're spot on. It's the inflammation that goes beyond our heads, right? We start thinking, could it be this ailment? Could it be that? Like, I had 2 knee surgeries, and now thinking back, it was inflammation. At what point, what else does inflammation cause?
Chronic low-grade inflammation is pretty much the root of every single metabolic disease. Inflammation of the brain is also known as depression. When you have an inflamed liver, it's usually because of insulin resistance and having chronically high blood sugars and all that chronic low-grade inflammation. It just metastasizes into just about every single chronic disease that there is.
Like seeing so many people, it's the thing is, this is what I wanted to ask you. Have you reached a certain point where it's not being judgmental or anything like that? It's not saying, oh, I'm better than that person and whatnot. But now that your eyes have been completely unveiled, you go on your normal walk and whatnot, and you you pass by a McDonald's and it is always packed, always, no matter what. You should look at it from the perspective of what are these people doing? Do they have any idea what they're doing, or are they just following the mass?
I have nothing but sympathy for all those people. It wasn't too long ago that I was one of those people, and I I thought I knew that I could eat whatever I wanted, and it didn't really show any serious issues with me until like I said, around the age of 40. I was always thin. I could eat whatever I wanted, and I thought that people who were fat and diabetic and had health problems, they had a willpower problem. They just didn't know when to stop eating. If you're fat, you shouldn't eat so much. It was that simple. Well, it wasn't that simple. There's so many forces at play here, and most of it is insulin. Our 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 fat cells just become uh, insulin just beats up our cells so much that eventually the cells just get deaf to it, and they stop listening to insulin, and then all these other problems start to happen. And so I look at these people, and I see myself. I don't see people that are dumb. I just see people that are blinded, that they just buy into all the propaganda, and their addictions feed into their way of thinking. The culture, this junk food is everywhere. We're bombarded by the thought of food or the sight of food almost 24/7, almost every single waking moment of the day. We're either eating or thinking about eating, or seeing commercials, or hearing commercials that talk about eating. And it's not until you get outside of that and look in that you realize how bad it really is. It's just like you're stuck in this movie. You finally get out of the mob and see how brainwashed everybody is, and you look back, and you can't wake anybody up. And you came from that. So I mean, who am I to look down upon these people? They're me. I was them.
100%. And that's where I want to segue, right? Like, it just seems like the pharmaceutical companies, agricultural industries, they have it down to a science. How they know how to target the microbiome, in which they demonized fasting. Like, whenever I talk about fasting to friends and family, they think I'm starving. I'm like, I'm not starving. If I'm hungry, I'll eat, but it's a self-discipline. Why is it that every time you want to better yourself and kind of get out of this rut, there's always a negative influence pushing you back? Case in point, Thanksgiving. I'm eating like crazy. Years past, not this past one. No issue. I was 55 pounds overweight. No problem. Now I'm more conscious of what I eat. But now I'm getting, you're going to get a heart attack. You're eating way too much red meat.
It's a lifetime of being brainwashed, if you will. Um,
Nice.
everybody's taught, just to think a certain way, and to look a certain way at the things that have made us healthy. They've demonized pretty much everything that's made us healthy. They've demonized the things that allow us to control our hunger, because if you're not eating 3 meals and 3 snacks a day and got a Coke in your hand, when you're not eating, then you're not making money for big food and big pharma. So yeah, the deck is stacked against us, and all these lies that are told about real food, and about just you need to eat less and work out more, eat the rainbow. You can have a little bit of everything. It's all designed to put money in the pockets of the people that are controlling our lives. And
Now, I wanted to bring this to your attention here. So this is a study that came out. Um, Study finds, you could see it, right? I just want to make sure everybody could see it.
Barely.
Yes. All right. So a study published in the American Medical Association International Medicine found that consuming large amounts of sugar increases the risk of dying from heart disease, even if you aren't overweight. So it seems like the truth is coming out that it's really not cholesterol that is the overall issue here. It's sugar. It's the sugar consumption where we just can't burn off this fuel. Um, and I know for me, I'm very sensitive with sugar, and it's the craziest thing. Like I did keto back in the day, and it was great. No fruit, no fruit, nothing like that. But I would still eat vegetables. Kind of like Michaela Peterson with her journey. Now I notice being on this Lion diet, that even vegetables provide our carbohydrates and then convert into sugar, and that spikes up my receptors, and I get hungrier and hungrier. So is it something that it's genetically modified? Has it gone to that point where even fruits and vegetables have been perverted to spike our insulin levels?
Um, I think the idea of making foods hyper sweetened is to create hyper palatability in food, to compel us to keep eating food. Um, the tobacco companies bought into the big food companies, and those scientists that worked on making addictive cigarettes immediately went to work making addictive foods. And they found that when you combine sugar and fat and salt, you create what's called the bliss point. And this is what compels us to eat and not stop. For example, Oreos. I don't really like Oreos, but if I eat an Oreo, I can't stop. I'll want to eat another Oreo and another Oreo. And I'm not even that crazy about them. But the combination of that fat and that salt and that sugar, it's just compelling. It's hard to fight. And these food scientists know that. That's what they're paid to do. They're some of the brightest scientists in the world. And they're out to get us. They're out to hook us. As far as sugar goes, back in the early 60s, a couple of Harvard scientists were paid the equivalent of like $50,000 in today's money to point the blame at saturated fat as what was causing all the heart disease and take the blame away from sugar. I learned this from The Big Fat Surprise, Nina Teicholz. If you've not read that book, I highly recommend that book. She goes all into detail about how these things occurred and how industry has manipulated the science to cater to selling more of their goods and making people think that it's not a problem as long as you avoid saturated fats and such. And as far as sugar by itself goes, yes, it's an evil thing for someone who is metabolically unhealthy. But I can tell you that all throughout my childhood, I had sugar everywhere in everything. I ate cereal, I had juice, I had Pop-Tarts, I had granola bars. I had sugar all day long, and I didn't get fat. And I think what started making me fat was when they started adding all these seed oils into the equation. Carbs by themselves in someone who's healthy isn't going to create too much of a fat issue as long as they've got healthy insulin levels. But if you've got insulin problems and a chronically high blood sugar, then you're just going to keep stuffing all this fat in your cells. And it's that combination of sugar and fat that causes the weight problems. They've showed this in some animal studies where they would just feed them sugar, and then they would another group would get a lot more fat, and the group that got the sugar and the fat would always be the fattest.
Wow, you said something interesting, right, regarding your childhood. And I noticed that too, growing in the 80s and whatnot. Um, the fruits were smaller, if it makes any sense.
They were
Uh,
different.
it, they were very different. And I remember eating maybe an apple, and I was done. An apple or a grape. And one thing that's super interesting to me is the watermelons nowadays. There are no black seeds whatsoever. I remember spitballing them, being a kid at my brother's, and
Right.
it was just one after another. Now, I guess my brothers are happy now that there's no more black seeds in there because I would still do it. But I'm just saying that there's nothing there. But it's now being so far removed from sugars, it tastes as if I'm drinking just a cup of white confection sugar. And I have the same reaction as what you just said with the Oreo cookies. Like it was never just to eat two cookies. I would eat the entire sleeve
Right.
and then some. Why do they do it like this? What, to the point, do they want us sick?
They want us addicted. They want us compelled to keep eating it. It's like I said, the cigarette manufacturers, they wanted us to keep buying cigarettes. The more we smoke, the more money they make. It's the same thing with Oreos. The more Oreos we eat, the more money they make. Interesting thing you said about these modern fruits. I went and bought the world's sweetest grapefruit, and the last time I ate a grapefruit, I couldn't eat it without putting sugar on it because it was so bitter. And now they've got these grapefruits now that you don't need sugar on them. They're as sweet as oranges were back in the 80s. It's crazy how much sweetness that they put into these fruits, and to get them that sweet, they've sacrificed the things that made them good, the nutrients. So yeah, they're not as healthy. They've just become treats more than they are fruits. Fruits, used to be good for you. Now they just bombard your liver with all this fructose, and that's creating a lot of fatty liver problems like we've never seen before.
Wow. Now, I want to touch up on childhood, because I just feel like sometimes the coping mechanisms in the environment that we grow from and into and out of play a huge role in this. Again, from personal experiences, the go-to when I would see my mom going through certain issues was always getting something to eat all the time. So me watching that, even though I was skinny or whatever the case is, that led for my own kind of decision makings as I was growing older, popping on the couch, kids upstairs, watching reruns of Seinfeld and just scarfing down food and not, I don't know if this would happen to you, Cary, but you would zone out, like you would check out, but still eating, not stopping. And the refrigerator would be the drug dealer. And I would just go in there, eat, eat, eat. Do you feel that childhoods do play a role in severe obesity as well and bad decision making?
Yeah, I can remember quite a few times where I would be eating something and wouldn't even be done with it, and I would be thinking of what else can I eat. These hyper palatable foods just have you so into what you're eating that you don't want to stop eating. So when you're almost down to the last two Oreos, you're like, okay, what can I have now? Oh, there's some ice cream. Let me go. That will go great after some Oreos. So my mom was all into the standard American diet thing, into low fat. We had margarine. We ate red meat once a week at most. We ate a lot of vegetables, and vegetable oil. Never had butter. I didn't really taste butter until I was 12, 13 years old, and it was like angels started singing. The first time I put that big dab of butter in my mouth.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But it took me 40 years to break away from that mentality of, doing what we become our parents. We pick up their habits. We do what they do, whether we want to or not, just because we've been trained that way.
Right.
And it took me 40 years to break free of that mentality. And then when I would see my mother and her health deteriorating later in life because she ate low fat and took statins for 30 years, it was really hard to do. Every time I tried to talk to her about, saturated fat and how she needs it and cholesterol and why it's important, she just always changed the subject. And yeah.
I find that interesting because that happens to me a lot with family members. And again, I don't want to like call them out and whatnot, but you try to have a respectful dialogue. And then they bring up the doctor says that I should be more mindful of my cholesterol. The doctor says I have to be on a low fat diet. The doctor. Like I know with me, when I would go to my primary, he was very quick to prescribe me meds. I never took it or whatnot. And I would always struggle. I'm like, is this a mental thing? Is this a gut issue? Why don't I have that control anymore? Or did I ever have it to begin with? I honestly feel like this here right now, April 4th, that I have an immense understanding, and not to boast. I don't want to sound that like that, but I have no brain fog. Did you experience something like that it was a complete epiphany when you went on a carnivore way of eating?
Well, not having brain fog felt like being high, like there being more oxygen available to my brain. It felt all that clarity. It was just not anything that I experienced for any length of time in my life. It took a while to get used to it. The new normal. It was a year of just walking around with a smile on my face, just being high on life and wishing everybody around me knew what I knew. It took me a year to get used to that, and eventually you do. But as far as these doctors go, most of these doctors work for a hospital or they work for insurance companies. They're not allowed to do anything, outside the standard of care without, getting in trouble. And the standard of care is to, treat this problem with this drug, and so on. If you go into a doctor and they tell you, hey, you're overweight, you have high blood pressure, cut out the sugar, eat low carb, eat some veggies, some low glycemic veggies, cut out the soda, and see you in 6 months. That's $300, and the guy gets better, and they come back and they don't need their blood pressure meds anymore. They're off their diabetes, medication, and that's the end of the story. That's $300. Or you can tell the guy, eat more, eat less, move more, take this pill. Oh, you're having side effects from that pill. Have this pill. That's $500 now. That's $3,000 over the entire year for all those pills. And then next year you come back and you have liver problems, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And next thing you know, you can make $500,000 off this person in 10 years. Whereas 10 years ago, if you just told them to, eat a low carb diet for a while and chill with the processed food, you only made $300. That's how the medical system looks at us. They see us as a $300 cure or a $500,000, I don't know what do you want to call it, a customer, pretty much. So that's the problem with doctors. Doctors aren't out for our best interest anymore. They're out for their hospital's best interest. And the goal of all these hospitals is to make profit. They are for-profit healthcare.
It's interesting that you say that because, I got a chance to interview Robert Kilt's fertility doctor, Dr. Baker as well. And both of them, I believe they were I know Dr. Baker, he had his license revoked because of what he was promoting. He was trying to help people, but then he fought it back and he got it. He became licensed once again. It's like, these are pathfinders. These are trailblazers that they go against the grain. These are the doctors that I want to go to. And, I finally found one. He's phenomenal. Out of the box. Let's look at things a little bit different. You're doing things, you're following a diet that is not mainstream, Daniel. You're not. But with that being said, cholesterol is down, your blood pressure is down, your weight is down, you're 43, and you're telling me that you feel as if you're 20. And it's true. I'm very vibrant. I'm very talkative. The words come through my mind quick. I don't know how to explain it, but this is what I want. I mean, like Cary, you're freaking bullseyeing it. Like, you want to wake everyone up to this, to question everything and make their own decisions. I just feel like the pharmaceutical companies and all these agricultural industries, they veil us and they make us so fog-headed that we're just too lazy enough to ask questions. Do you agree?
Absolutely. If you're always tired and you're always sick, it's hard to figure out the real truth. And it's like you say, if we're always in a fog, then we're never going to find any real solutions in our life. Mm-hmm. We're just going to struggle to get through every single day. And people who are like that are a lot easier to control. People who think clearly and think outside the box. Those are the dangerous people because you can't control them.
I wanted to pose something to you because I found like a common denominator in this. So again, I have a good friend, overweight. He went and did the gastric bypass. All right. Gastric bypass. I see him probably in a month, lost crazy amount of weight. Then I ask him, what do you eat? He's like, I don't eat that much anymore. I'm like, all right, how many times a day? I eat maybe once a day. I normally fast. Clue number one. Another friend, same thing, female, took Ozempic. After a month and a half, looked like a completely different person. And I go and I approach her. I'm like, what do you eat? I don't eat. I eat maybe once in a while. What do? I fast. So it's accepted. It's accepted when you go that route. But me, normal, if I just want to fast, it's called starvation. Why is there such a dichotomy, Cary, on this? Why? That drives me crazy beyond anything else. It just drives me off the wall where I'm fasting, maybe 24 to 48 hours. I'm doing it right now. But it's acceptable for someone that went either under the knife or one of those things.
That's a great point that you're bringing up. I've never really looked at it that way. And my first thought is that because this desire to not eat was born from a pharmaceutical intervention, whether it was surgery or drugs, then that's acceptable. Mm-hmm. But when we naturally allow our body our fat burning metabolism to take over when we're not eating, people don't understand that. They understand drugs, they understand surgery, but they don't understand people who have metabolic flexibility and can turn off that switch where they stop burning food in their belly and then turn on that switch to where they can just metabolize body fat without hunger. People just don't understand that because they've gone their whole lives, eating 3 meals and 3 snacks every single day. They just can't fathom going that long without eating. But, like I said, introduce the idea of drugs or surgery, and then there's an explanation for that. But they just, until you go 48 hours without eating and you feel that, amazing adrenaline and then the human growth hormone, coursing through you and the ultra clarity and feeling 10 years younger, after 36 hours, until you experience that, you have no idea what that's all about. You think you're just starving, you're just dying of hunger. And it's nothing like that at all when you have that metabolic flexibility.
You have an amazing following, especially on Twitter, X. And I wanted to ask, how do you cope with the negativity? How do you deal with people that they see your success story, right? Especially being an author. I wanted to bring this up here because I love this. I love that you went above and beyond. Again, Carnicopia, the meat-based cookbook your doctor doesn't want you to read. I love this. What do you do to get away from all that, all that negativity, hearing, because it could weigh on some people, because I honestly think that there's definitely a mental health aspect on this too. You're trying to do something good for yourself. You're also trying to live the example. But then you have this pessimistic, nefarious wave saying, you're going to fail. This doesn't work. Or you have an audience just waiting, chomping at the bit that you don't go on social media anymore and then judging, yep, he fell off and it was all for nothing.
I try to look at that in a positive way. Okay. If all these people are, coming after me and saying, I'm doing it wrong, blah, 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 I look at it like this. If I really was some crazy person, then nobody would listen to me. People would just ignore me. The crazy guy preaching about, the day of judgment is upon us and all that and whatnot. People ignore him. But if somebody says something that, on the corner, it says something that challenges how you see something, or hits a spot where you think this is the way things are, but you act very, very aggressively, then maybe you don't really have that kind of confidence in your beliefs that you think you do. And these people remind me of myself not so long ago, and I try to remember that it wasn't so long ago that I said many of the things that they said, and I was humbled, and I tried to plant seeds in the hope that maybe they're not ready today to understand this, but maybe when they have some medical desperation in their life, they'll be forced to look at it in another way, and they'll remember this conversation I had that we had with them, and maybe, just maybe, I'm planting those seeds for a future day, like those seeds were planted for me by somebody. I didn't tell you this, but I learned about keto from a guy who just randomly just told me. He said, "Hey, I lost 70 pounds doing keto diet." And I didn't even ask him. And at the time, I was like, that's got to be bad for you. And but it was a seed. It stayed in my head for a couple months, and then I found my medical desperation. And I remembered what he said, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to try that." So maybe these naysayers, I'm planting that seed for them too. So even if it's just 1 out of 100, that's worth something.
I love how you allude to reassessment, never forgetting how you were at that point in helping others. I think that just speaks volumes of your character, Cary. because sometimes in the midst of all of this transformation, shame on me, I forget. And I'm like, how can I forget that? How can I forget where I was before? I need to help people. And I think that that's the whole purpose of the series, is to see, just like you said, plant seeds, throw it out there. Someone might come across this video, hearing your testimony and what you did to better yourself and also better other people. And knowing that as long as there's air in your lungs, there is still a chance to turn this thing around. And I appreciate you so much, Cary, for coming on here. You have no idea how much this conversation means to me. And I know it's going to touch so many people. Where can people find you, Cary?
I'm mostly on X. That's my clubhouse, my hangout. That's where my tribe is. I post a little bit on YouTube. I have Cary Kelly's Carnicopia, but all my content that is there is on X. I pretty much post everything. Not everything makes it into YouTube.
Before I let you go, I'm very intrigued. What made you write that amazing book, the recipes and everything? Like, it is so awesome to look at this, and it's not just red meat anymore.
Well, I've been on X for about 6 years or so, and I always share my what I'm eating and my recipes, and people would ask me, hey, what's in it? What's in this? How can you make that? And I decided to start posting these recipes in a place, and eventually I had hundreds or over 100 recipes, and people kept encouraging me to write a cookbook, which I did. Nina Teicholz was a big protagonist who kept encouraging me to do this, and I'm grateful for her for doing that, and believing that I could actually do something that would help people. And having a background of 30 years in the restaurant industry also helped too. So, I have a lot of background with different foods and stuff, and that made converting low carb or regular standard American diet meals, it made that easy. Turning those into low carb or even carnivore dishes fairly easy.
What's your favorite one in that book? What's your favorite one?
I like the meatloaf.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 meals. One, the first day it's meatloaf, and the second day I'll cut it up and I'll have these like bacon cheeseburger meatloaf things. So
it's awesome, Cary. Again, thank you so much, man. Keep slaying it on X. I'm avid on there. Whenever you post something, I'm right there to like it and to retweet it, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate your time, man.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, the very best.